The phone rings sharply and loudly. Chica is already awake. She's sitting up in bed, looking at her tablet. Her black hair is pulled back into a ponytail. June is sleeping next to her. Chica picks up the phone. Hello? The voice on the other end is Liana, their cook, but it doesn't sound right. It's hoarse and creaky. Chica, hello? I'm sorry, I won't be coming today. I'm sick. I have a sore throat and a high fever. The doctor gave me sick leave for 3 days. I'm very sorry. Chica wrinkles her forehead. She looks at the sleeping man. Juna, Liana, don't worry. Get treatment. We'll manage somehow. They talk for another minute. Then they hang up. Chica puts the phone down on the blanket. She looks at the wall. June tosses and turns. What happened? He mumbles sleepily. Liana's sick. She won't be home for 3 days, Chica says. June opens one eye. I see. So there will be no breakfast. Okay, he says and turns around. Chica looks at her watch. It's 7 in the morning. Liana always starts cooking in the kitchen at exactly this time. She turns on the stove, slices the bread, makes coffee. By 8, everything is ready. That won't happen today. And it won't happen tomorrow. And the day after that. Chica gets out of bed. She puts on her blue silk robe. She goes out into the hallway. The house is quiet. She goes into the kitchen and turns on the light. The kitchen is large. Everything is clean and shiny. But today it seems empty. There is nothing on the stove. There is no smell of food. The table is clean. It is quiet. Very quiet. Chica opens the fridge. There's a lot of stuff in there. Eggs, milk, cottage cheese, sausage, vegetables. But she just stares at it. She doesn't know what to do with it. She hasn't cooked in a while. June hasn't either. She closes the refrigerator. The clicking sound is loud in the silence. She thinks about what to do. Maybe just coffee? But she doesn't want to. She's too lazy. Amina appears in the doorway. She is standing in her pajamas. Her long, curly hair is disheveled. She rubs her eyes. Mom, where is breakfast? She asks. I woke up. It usually smells delicious. Liana is sick, says Chica. We'll have to eat sandwiches. For 3 days? Asks Amina. She is no longer sleepy. Yes, sighs Chica. Amina looks at the stove, then at her mother, then back to the stove. She's thinking. She often watched Liana cook. Sometimes she helped. She has her own children's cookbook. Can I make breakfast? Amina suddenly says. Her voice is confident. Chica looks at her in surprise. You? Yes, I can. I want to try. I'll make something. I have recipes in my book, Amina says. She straightens up. Her eyes are shining. June enters the kitchen. He is wearing a black robe. He heard the last words. What is it? Who will cook? He asks. Amina wants to make us breakfast, says Chica. June looks at her daughter. She is standing in her pajamas. She is small, but she looks serious. Really? He asks. Really, Dad. Let me try. I promise it will be delicious, says Amina. She looks at him and does not take her eyes off him. June looks at Chica. Chica shrugs. They have no choice. And in Amina's eyes, they see genuine desire. June smiles. Okay, chef, the kitchen is yours. We're your guests. Show us what you can do, he says. Amina smiles happily. Hooray! Then don't disturb us. Everyone, get out. I need to cook, she commands. She goes to the closet and takes off her large blue apron. It's too big for her. It almost reaches the floor. Amina ties it and rolls up her sleeves. She's ready to begin. Amina is alone in the kitchen. She goes to the bookshelf. There is a large hardcover book there. It is The Big Cookbook. Liana often uses it. Amina takes the book down. It is heavy. The girl places it on the table. She sits down on a chair. Her feet do not reach the floor. She opens the book. The pages rustle. There are lots of pictures. Soups, salads, meat, desserts. Amina flips through it slowly. She's looking for something simple, something for breakfast. Her fingers glide over the pages. And suddenly, she sees them. Syrniki. In the picture, they're round, golden brown, on a white plate. A spoonful of sour cream lies nearby. Amina smiles. She remembers her dad eating them last Sunday. He said, Liana, these are simply delicious. Amina wants her dad to say the same about her syrniki. She reads the recipe. Ingredients: cottage cheese, eggs, sugar, flour, salt. It's simple. Steps: mix, mold, fry. She can do it. She's confident. Amina puts the book down so she can see the recipe. Now she's ready. Amina gets up from her chair. She goes to the sink. She turns on the water. She thoroughly washes her hands with soap. She dries them on her large apron. Now she opens the refrigerator. She looks for cottage cheese. There it is, in a green package. She takes it. Then she finds eggs. She carefully lays everything out on the table. Now she needs to find flour and sugar. She opens the cabinet. There are many jars. She finds sugar, then flour. She puts them next to each other. Amina looks at the recipe. She needs a bowl. She opens the bottom cabinet. There are bowls there. She chooses the middle blue bowl. She places it on the table. Now for the spoon. She picks up a wooden spoon. She opens a package of cottage cheese. She puts the cottage cheese in a bowl. Then she picks up an egg. She hits it on the edge of the bowl. The shell cracks. She tries to break it. The shell falls into the cottage cheese. Amina frowns. She carefully fishes out the pieces of shell with her fingers. She throws them in the sink. She cracks the second egg more carefully. It turns out better. The yolk and white fall into the bowl. Now for the sugar. She adds 3 spoons, as per the recipe. Then a pinch of salt. Now for the flour. She adds 2 spoons. Now it's time to mix. Amina takes a spoon and starts stirring. The cottage cheese, eggs, sugar, and flour all stick together into one dough. She has to apply force. She stirs. Her hand gets tired, but she doesn't stop. The dough becomes smooth. It's soft and a little sticky. It's ready. Amina takes out a frying pan. It's heavy. The girl places it on the stove. She turns the heat to medium. The stove lights up with a blue flame. The pan begins to heat up. She needs oil. She pours some sunflower oil from the bottle. It sizzles in the hot pan. Amina steps back. She's a little afraid of the splashes. Now it's time to make the syrniki. She washes her hands. She pinches off a piece of dough. She rolls it between her palms. It forms a ball. She places it on a cutting board and presses it lightly with her palm. It forms a thick flatbread. She carefully picks it up and places it in the frying pan. The dough falls into the hot oil. It sizzles loudly. Amina waits. After a minute, she tries to flip the syrniki with a spatula, but it won't turn over. It's stuck. She tries to pry it up harder. The syrniki falls apart. It's burnt on the bottom and stuck to the pan. Amina looks at this porridge. She's not upset. She just looks. Then she takes a spatula and scrapes everything into the trash can. She turns off the stove. The pan cools. She thinks, why is it stuck? Maybe there's not enough oil? Maybe the pan is wrong? She remembers how Liana always heats the pan well first and pours in more oil and makes the dough less sticky by adding more flour. Amina washes the frying pan. She decides to start over. Amina returns to the dough. She adds another spoonful of flour. She stirs it again. Now the dough is less sticky. She dusts the board with flour. Now she makes more syrniki. They hold their shape. She puts the pan back on the stove, turns on the heat, waits until the pan gets very hot. She tests it by dripping a drop of water. It forms a ball and sizzles. It's ready. Amina pours in more oil. There's more than the first time. The oil covers the entire bottom. She waits for the oil to heat up too. Now she takes the first flatbread, carefully places it on the pan. The sizzling sound is loud again, but Amina is no longer afraid. She adds 3 more flatbreads. They don't stick. They lie flat. After a couple of minutes, the edges are golden. Amina takes a spatula. She lifts one of the syrniki. It flips over easily. The other side is no longer white, but browned. Perfect! She smiles. Now she understands. She needs more oil and a hot pan. She flips the remaining syrniki. They are all whole and beautiful. She fries them on the other side. Then she places them on a plate lined with a paper towel to drain the excess oil. The smell is wonderful. Sweet, milky, fried. She's making a second batch. A third. Soon, a whole mountain of golden brown syrniki is piled on the plate. There are so many of them. Enough for everyone and more. The meal is over. Now it's time for the table. Amina loves this moment. She opens the cupboard. There are beautiful dishes there. Usually, Liana takes them out. Today, it's Amina who does it. She places a blue oilcloth on the table. Then she takes 3 large plates. They are white, with a thin blue border. She arranges them on the table. She places a knife, fork, and spoon next to each plate. She makes sure everything is laid out evenly. Now for the napkins. There are paper napkins in the desk drawer. They are solid colors: yellow, green, orange. Amina chooses the orange ones. It's the color of her dress. She places one next to each plate. She folds them into a triangle, puts down the salt shaker, puts down a small bowl for sour cream, takes sour cream out of the refrigerator, puts it in the bowl, and puts a small spoon next to it. The table looks elegant, but something is missing. Amina looks at the table. She needs something alive, something beautiful. She remembers the balcony. Mom has a pot of mint growing there, and there are fresh blueberries in the fridge. Amina goes out onto the balcony. She picks 3 small sprigs of mint. They smell fresh. Then she takes a handful of blueberries from the refrigerator. The berries are dark blue, almost black. She washes the berries in mint, dries them. Now she takes the first plate. She places 1 blueberry on its edge. Next to it, she places a small mint leaf. Then the second plate. Then the third. On each plate, 1 berry and 1 leaf. Now the table is perfect. The food is ready. The table is set. Everything is beautiful. Amina steps back and looks at her work. She is pleased, very pleased. The smell of fried syrniki doesn't stay in the kitchen. It seeps into the hallway. It goes into the bedroom. Chica and June are still lying down. They are not sleeping, but they are not getting up either. Suddenly, Chica sniffs the air. June, can you smell it? She asks. I can smell it, he says, without opening his eyes. It smells fried, sweet. Is that syrniki? It looks like it, says Chica. She sits up. But how? Liana is not here. They both listen. The usual sounds do not come from the kitchen. Liana's footsteps, the hum of the range hood. It is quiet, but the smell is getting stronger. It is warm, delicious, homey. June opens her eyes. I wonder what's going on in there, he says. They stand up, put on robes. They walk into the hallway. The smell is even stronger here. He leads them straight to the kitchen. They stop at the door. Their eyes widen. The kitchen isn't just clean, it's elegant. The table is set. There are plates and cutlery on it. Everything is laid out neatly and correctly. In the center is a large plate with a mountain of golden brown syrniki. They look perfect. And next to the table stands Amina. She's wearing a huge blue apron. Her sleeves are rolled up. On her face is a big, happy, slightly proud smile. Her eyes are shining. She looks at her parents like an artist at his painting. Good morning, she says loudly. Breakfast is served. Please come to the table. Chica and June exchange glances. They weren't expecting this. They expected to find a few crooked pancakes or burnt eggs on the table. But here, everything is real here. Everything is beautiful here. They slowly approach the table. They sit down. Amina ceremoniously places the plate of syrniki in the center. She places 2 syrniki on each of her parents' plates. She pours a spoonful of sour cream over them. Eat them while they're hot, she says, and sits down herself. June looks at her plate. The cheesecake is smooth and golden brown. Steam rises from it. He picks up a fork, cuts off a piece, brings it to his mouth, chews. His face changes. His eyebrows first rise slightly in surprise. Then his eyes narrow slightly in pleasure. He nods slowly, chewing. He doesn't say a word. He simply cuts off the next piece. And the next. He eats quickly, with gusto. Chica tries it too. She carefully breaks off a piece with her fork. She tries it. She smiles. Amina, this is very tasty, she says sincerely. June finishes her first cheesecake. He puts down his fork. He looks at his daughter. Amina looks at him, holding her breath. She waits for his word. All her efforts are for this moment. June wipes her mouth with a napkin. Amina, he says seriously, these aren't just delicious. They're wonderful. These are… He searches for the word. These are proper syrniki, the way they should be. Golden brown on the outside, soft inside, not burnt. Did you make these yourself? All alone? All alone, Amina says proudly. The first one stuck, but I figured out it needed more oil in a hot pan, so I added flour. You figured it out yourself? June asks. He's impressed. Yes. I thought about it and realized. Amina nods. June looks at her for a long moment. Then she smiles again. A wide, warm smile. Then you didn't just help. You saved our breakfast. You're a real hero and a talented cook. Thank you. These words are for Amina is more precious than any toy. Her face glows with happiness. She sits up straight and feels grown up, needed, smart. She's figured out the secret. And she did it all herself. And it worked. It couldn't be better. June finishes the last bite of his second cheesecake. He looks at his empty plate. Then he looks up at Amina. His eyes are filled with a clear, simple desire. Amina, he says, these syrniki, they're too good. Simply incredible. Do you… He pauses briefly for effect. Do you have any dough left? Amina glances quickly at the bowl. There's still dough in there, almost half. Yes, Dad, there's some left, she replies. Then please make us some more, another portion. I can eat 3 more. No, 4, June says, and there's a childish delight in his voice. He's not asking, he's almost begging, like a boy. Chica looks at him and laughs. June, come to your senses, you're a grown man, she says, but pushes her plate closer. Although, I wouldn't mind another one either. Just one. Amina looks at them. She sees that they're not just being polite. They genuinely want more. They appreciate her food. That's the most important compliment for anyone who cooks. A smile so wide spreads across Amina's face that it feels like her cheeks are about to hurt. She jumps up from her chair. Of course! I'll do it right now! There will be more! She exclaims. Her energy doubles. She doesn't feel tired. She feels only joy. Joy that her work is needed, that she is loved and praised. She feels important. She is the queen of the kitchen, and her subjects ask for more of her magical gifts. She quickly collects her parents' dirty plates and carries them to the sink. Then she returns to the stove. She's no longer afraid. She knows what to do. She turns on the heat, pours oil, and waits for the pan to become hot. Her movements are confident and swift. She makes new syrniki, slightly smaller, so that she can get more of them. She fries them deftly, flipping them at the right moment. 10 minutes later, 6 more perfect golden circles are steaming on a new plate. She carries them to the table. The parents are waiting, as if at a celebration. Served, she announces. Breakfast is over. The syrniki have been eaten down to the last crumb. Chica and June are sitting at the table, looking pleased. They're drinking tea, which Amina also brewed. She simply placed a tea bag in a cup and poured boiling water over it. But she did this with an air of importance. Chica looks at her daughter, who's clearing away the last of the plates. She's considering something. Amina, she begins softly, tell me honestly, did you like it? Are you tired? Amina turns around. Her eyes are still shining. I really enjoyed it. I'm not tired at all. It's so much fun, she says. Chica exchanges glances with June. An unspoken decision matures between them. Then, maybe you could try making dinner too? Chica asks cautiously. Of course, we'll help if something's difficult, but mostly you, if you want. They don't command, they offer. They give her a choice. This makes the offer even more valuable. Amina doesn't hesitate for a second. She's not afraid. She's just conquered the syrniki. She feels she has the strength to conquer the whole dinner. Yes, it will be more difficult, but she can do it. She wants to try. Yes, she says firmly. I want to make dinner. I will. I know what needs to be done. Her agreement isn't just a yes. It's a confident, considered yes. She can already imagine herself at the stove with soup and cutlets. She likes it. June smiles. Then we're out of your way, chef. We're going about our business. Take charge of the kitchen, he says, standing up. He approaches Amina and puts his hand on her shoulder. You're doing well. You're doing very well. The parents leave the kitchen. Amina is left alone. Now she has a new task. Lunch. This is serious. She picks up the large cookbook again. She sits down at the table. She leafs through it. She needs soup, something simple. Her eyes stop on the page with chicken noodle soup. The picture looks appetizing. The recipe has many steps, but they are clear. Boil the broth, add the vegetables, add the noodles. Okay, we'll have soup. Now for the main course. She needs something filling for Dad. She finds a recipe for chicken cutlets. Also a picture. Also clear steps. Mix the ground meat with onion and bread. Shape it, fry. Perfect. Soup and cutlets. You can make mashed potatoes to go with the cutlets. But mashed potatoes are potatoes. They need to be peeled, boiled, and mashed. That's probably complicated. Better yet, just boiled rice. Rice is simple. Just add water and cook. Amina writes everything down on a piece of paper. She ends up with a list. Chicken noodle soup, chicken cutlets, rice. Now the grocery list. She opens the fridge and cupboards, checking to see if everything is there. There's chicken, there are carrots and onions, there are noodles, there's ground chicken, there's rice, there's everything. She lays the book out on the stand so the recipe is in front of her. She places her list next to it. She puts on her apron. She takes a deep breath. She's ready. The work begins. Amina acts according to plan. First, soup. She needs to make some broth. She takes out a saucepan, places the chicken pieces in it, fill it with cold water, puts it on high heat. She needs to skim off the foam. She remembers how Liana does it. When the water boils, a gray foam appears. Amina takes a slotted spoon and carefully skims off the foam. It doesn't work the first time, but she tries. While the broth simmers, she chops vegetables. The carrots need to be peeled and sliced. She takes a small knife. She peels them slowly, so as not to cut herself. She slices them slowly too. The slices are of varying thickness, but that's okay. She peels the onion, and it stings her eyes. She blinks, turns away, but manages. She cuts the onion into small cubes. Her fingers smell of onion. An hour later, the broth is ready. It's clear and smells of chicken. Amina removes the chicken pieces with a slotted spoon and lets them cool. She throws the carrots and onions into the boiling broth. Let them simmer. Now the cutlets. She takes out the ground meat. She needs to add the onion. She peels another onion. She cries but endures it. She grates the onion on a fine grater, mixes it with the ground meat, adds bread soaked in milk and salt. She mixes it with her hands. It's unpleasant. The ground meat is cold and sticky, but she doesn't stop. Then she washes her hands and makes the cutlets. They turn out a bit uneven, but firm. Now for the rice. She pours the rice into a saucepan, rinses it with water several times until the water runs clear. Add water as per the recipe. Put it on to boil. While everything is boiling and frying, she separates the chicken meat from the bones, cuts it into pieces, and returns it to the soup. She also throws a handful of thin noodles into the soup, stirring them to prevent them from sticking. She places a frying pan on the second burner and heats the oil. She adds the patties. They sizzle. She keeps an eye on them, turning them over when one side is browned. The kitchen fills with a variety of smells. The smell of chicken broth, fried onions and cutlets, and cooked rice. It's a complex but very appetizing bouquet. Amina is very focused. She runs from the stove to the table, checking the list, glancing at the book. She's tired, but she doesn't show it. She wants everything to be perfect. Finally, everything is ready. The soup is poured into deep bowls. Each one is filled with pieces of chicken, noodles, and carrots. The cutlets sit on a platter, golden brown and juicy. The fluffy rice sits in a separate white bowl. Now it's time to set the table. Amina sweeps all the crumbs off the table. She takes out a different tablecloth, one with a small blue pattern. She changes the plates for deep soup bowls. She puts out new napkins, blue this time. She remembers the decorations. She looks at the table. Something green is needed. She picks a few more sprigs of parsley from the balcony. She washes them. She places a small sprig of parsley on the edge of each soup bowl. It looks very restaurant-like. She places all the dishes on the table. Soup tureens, a plate of cutlets, a bowl of rice. Next to it is the sauce for the cutlets. She sets out the cutlery. She checks that everything is in place. The table looks even better than it did this morning. It looks like a real holiday dinner table. Amina steps back to admire it. She's pleased, very pleased. Amina calls her parents. Chica and June enter the kitchen. Their eyes widen in surprise again. Chica asks incredulously, looking at the generously laid table. "It's all me," the girl confirms proudly. They sit down. The first impression is of the soup. June tries a spoonful of broth. "Rich," he says approvingly. "Just right." Chica tries the chicken. "Tender, well cooked. And the noodles aren't overcooked." "Excellent, daughter." Then the cutlets. June takes one, puts it on her plate, and tries it. "They're juicy," he says. "And the onion doesn't taste like it's in chunks. Did you grate it finely?" "Smart girl." "Yes, I did." Amina nods. "I grated it and cried." Everyone laughs. They eat slowly, with relish. They thank Amina more than once. They praise every detail. The salt is well seasoned, the rice isn't burnt, the parsley is beautiful. Amina sits and feels like she's in seventh heaven. She did it. She cooked a real dinner. And it was a success. Lunch is coming to an end. June pushes her plate away. "Well, now we'll rest until the evening," he says with relief. "We'll have something light tonight, maybe a salad." Amina, who was washing the dishes, turns around. "Can I make dinner?" she asks. Her voice is calm, but there's a determination in it. Chica and June look at her. "Aren't you tired?" Chica asks. "You've been on your feet all day." "A little tired," Amina admits. "But I want it. I want today to be perfect, with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all on me. Can I?" She doesn't demand. She asks. But her request is so filled with a sincere desire to complete what she started that it's impossible to refuse. The parents agree. For dinner, Amina chooses something simpler. She slices vegetables, cucumbers, tomatoes, bell peppers. She carefully slices them and arranges them in a fan on a platter. She makes a simple cheese omelet. She's practically a pro at this, and she makes hot sandwiches in the toaster, bread, a slice of tomato, and cheese. The dinner table setting is different. She lights two thin wax candles she finds in the cabinet on the table. She turns off the overhead lights, leaving only the lights under the cabinets. The table becomes cozy, mysterious. She places bright yellow napkins on the plates. Dinner is quiet and peaceful. The food is simple, but made with love. The parents, tired from the day, eat, nod, and smile. They're not as enthusiastic about admiring her, but their gratitude is clear in their eyes. They appreciate not only the food, but also her effort, her desire to do something good for them. The next day, Liana is still sick. She calls again, her voice still weak. She says she's unlikely to come out tomorrow. Chica hangs up and looks at Amina, who is already standing in her apron. "Well, boss," says Chica, "looks like you're with us for 2 more days." Amina smiles. "I'm ready," she says. These 2 days fly by. Amina cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. She's not so nervous anymore. She's learning to manage her time. She's trying new recipes: pancakes for breakfast, broccoli soup for lunch, pasta with sauce for dinner. Not everything works out the first time, but she doesn't give up. She learns from her mistakes. The parents don't interfere. They only help with small things: getting something from a high shelf, opening a tight jar, carrying a heavy pot to the table. Everything else is Amina's responsibility. By the end of the 3rd day, Chica and June are getting used to it. They're getting used to waking up not to the sounds of Liana, but to the scents their daughter creates. They're getting used to the table always being beautifully set, even if it's just breakfast. They're getting used to the fact that there's something special about the food, not a professional polish, but soul. A homey, childlike, sincere soul. They're getting used to the proud gleam in Amina's eyes when she brings out a new dish. They're getting used to her tiredness in the evenings, but also to her reluctance to complain. They're getting used to their new role, not just as parents, but as grateful spectators and tasters of their daughter's talent. It's no longer just help, it's become a new reality, and they like this reality. They're beginning to appreciate not only the taste of the food, but also the quiet family happiness that came with it for these 3 days. They're even beginning to fear a little that Liana will return tomorrow, and this magical time will end. On the 4th morning, the phone rings again in the bedroom. Chica picks it up. It's Liana. "Good morning, Chica, it's me. I'm back on duty. No fever, my sore throat is almost gone. Can I come over today?" Her voice sounds cheerful, familiar. It's the voice of a professional who's eager to get back to her duties. Chica pauses for a second. She looks at the bedroom door, through which she can hear sounds from the kitchen. Amina has already started something there. "Of course, Liana," Chica says, trying to sound cheerful. "We're waiting for you. At 8, as usual." She hangs up. June looks at her, raising an eyebrow. "Liana's coming back," Chica says. There's a complex mixture in her voice: relief that the cook has recovered, and a slight sadness that even she can't understand. June nods. She says nothing. Chica comes into the kitchen. Amina is standing at the table. She has already taken out the flour and eggs. There is an open book on the table with a pancake recipe. "Amina, darling," Chica begins softly, "Liana just called. She has recovered. She will come to cook today." Amina freezes with an egg in her hand. She turns slowly. Her face, so animated a second ago, becomes motionless. The sparkle in her eyes dims. "Oh," she says quietly, "I see." She puts the egg back in the box. She looks at her book, closes it. Then she takes off her apron. She hangs it on a hook very carefully, as if saying goodbye to something important. "Okay," she says in a more even voice. "Then I won't bother you. I will clean everything up." "You're not bothering me," Chica says quickly, feeling a nagging awkwardness. "But yes, Liana will do everything today. You can rest. You've worked so hard." Amina nods silently. She puts away the flour and closes the refrigerator. Her movements are slow. She's been the mistress of this kitchen for 3 days, and now she's back to being just a girl eating breakfast. At precisely 7:30, the doorbell rings. It's Liana. Chica opens the door. Their cook stands there. She's dressed in a clean white coat, her hair neatly tucked under a hairnet. She's smiling, but still looks a little tired from her illness. "Hello, sorry again for the interruption," she says. "Oh no, the main thing is you're healthy," Chica replies. Letting her in, Liana walks into the kitchen. She greets Amina, who's sitting quietly at the dining room table, and gets right down to business. She turns on the stove, takes out the pans, and opens the refrigerator. The sounds return, the confident clatter of a knife, the sizzle of butter, the hum of the range hood. Familiar sounds. Liana works quickly and efficiently. She doesn't set the table in advance. She cooks first, then sets the table. Today, she's planning a simple but filling breakfast. A fluffy omelet with herbs and crispy buttered toast. She's slicing tomatoes for a light salad. She's putting on coffee. Amina sits and watches. She sees every movement. She sees Liana deftly whisk eggs in a bowl with a fork. She sees her pour batter into a hot frying pan. It's professional. It's beautiful. But it doesn't have that magic, that anticipation and surprise that there was when she did it. 20 minutes later, breakfast is ready. Liana sets the table. She sets out plates of omelet, toast on a wooden board, and a salad in a bowl. Everything is beautiful. Everything is perfect. She puts out the coffee pot, cream and sugar. Everything is as usual, exactly as it was before she got sick. Breakfast is served, Liana announces in her usual polite tone. Chica and June enter the dining room. They sit down. Amina takes her seat. Breakfast begins. But something is wrong. They usually talk over breakfast. Chica discusses her plans for the day. June reads the headlines on her tablet and comments on something. Amina says something. Today, everyone is silent. Chica picks up a fork. She tries the omelet. It's perfect. Airy, tender, well-salted, just like Liana always made it. But it's just like always. It doesn't surprise. It doesn't make you say, "Wow, what's so special about today?" It's just a really good omelet. June spreads butter on a piece of toast. He takes a bite. The toast is crisp. It's good. He chews silently. His gaze wanders across the table. There's no small vase with a flower on it. No berry on the plate. No brightly folded napkins. Everything is strict, functional, and a little boring. Amina eats very little. She picks at her omelet with her fork. She looks at her plate, not at her parents. The silence becomes loud. It's oppressive. You can touch it. The only sounds are the clatter of forks on plates and the crunch of toast. Chica tries to say something. "The omelet is good, Liana. Thank you," she says. Her voice sounds unnaturally loud in the silence. "You're welcome," Liana answers from the kitchen, where she's washing dishes. June sips her coffee. It's strong and aromatic, but today it tastes a bit bitter to him. He looks at Amina. She looks up and back at him. There's a question in her gaze, a hint of the disappointment he knows they're all feeling. It's not the food that's disappointing. The food is excellent. It's the return to normal, the fact that those magical 3 days are over, and now everything is as usual again. Only now this as usual feels somehow bland, incomplete. Amina pushes away her plate, which still has more than half an omelet on it. "I'm full," she says quietly. Chica wants to say, "You barely ate anything," but she doesn't. She understands. June finishes her coffee and places the cup on the saucer. The sound is clear and sharp. "Thank you, Liana," he says toward the kitchen. "Everything was, as always, excellent." "Glad to try," comes the reply. He gets up. Chica gets up. Amina gets up. Breakfast is over. The quietest and most awkward breakfast in years. They go their separate ways, but a sense of loss, of something wrong, hangs in the air. Everything is going as usual, but this flow is no longer enjoyable. It just is, and they all feel it. They don't need to say it out loud. It's visible in their eyes, in their silence, in their movements. The kitchen belongs to a professional again, and their home has become just a little less warm. June goes into his office, but doesn't sit at his desk. He stands by the window and looks out onto the street. His face is focused. His mind goes back to the last 3 days. He remembers the taste of those first syrniki, hot, slightly sweet. He remembers the proud gleam in Amina's eyes as she brought the soup. He remembers cozy, candlelit dinners. And then he remembers today's silence at the table, an oppressive, awkward silence, and Amina's empty plate. He remembers her hanging her apron on a hook, how slowly she took it off. There was something like a farewell in her eyes then. June turns away from the window. He's not a man of impulsive decisions. He weighs everything. He calculates money, time, benefits. And now he's starting to count. He counts Liana's salary, money that leaves the family every month, money for professionalism, for perfect omelets, for saving their time. Then he considers something else, his daughter's joy, her sparkling eyes, the confidence she's gained over the past few days. the skill she's demonstrated, the warmth she brought into the house with her dishes, which, while not perfect, were made with love. Quiet, happy conversations over dinner, not hasty snacks. He adds up these two calculations in his head. The first is pure numbers. The second is something intangible, but very heavy, very important. And the second one outweighs. Despite everything, the decision matures within him not in a flash, but as a firm, cold, thoughtful conclusion. It's not an emotion, it's a conclusion. The most correct conclusion for his family in this situation. June leaves the office. He goes to the kitchen. Liana has almost finished cleaning. She is wiping the countertop. Liana, June says calmly, please take a moment. Let's go into the living room. I need to talk to you. His tone is businesslike, even, without anger or much warmth, the tone of a man about to discuss a work matter. Liana pauses for a second. She looks at him, trying to read his face, but June's expression is expressionless. It's simply serious. Of course, she says, putting down the rag. She takes off her apron, hangs it up, and follows him into the living room. Chica, who was just leaving the bedroom, sees this. She stops in the hallway. She guesses what they're going to talk about. Her heart beats faster. She doesn't follow them. She remains standing, listening. They sit in the living room. June is in a chair. Liana is on the edge of the sofa. She sits up straight, her hands folded in her lap. She waits. June doesn't begin right away. He collects his thoughts. He wants to be as clear and precise as possible. Liana, he begins. First of all, thank you again for your work over the years. You're a professional. Your food was always impeccable. We appreciated that. Liana nods slightly. She senses the but. She waits for it. But, June continues, his voice even more measured, in the 3 days you were ill, changes have taken place in our house. Our daughter Amina has taken over kitchen duties. He pauses, letting the words sink in. We were surprised. We didn't expect it. But we saw something more than just childish play. We saw genuine interest, talent, and a tremendous amount of effort. She cooked breakfasts, lunches, dinners, set the table, decorated it. She didn't do it because she was forced to. She did it because she enjoyed it, genuinely enjoyed it. June looks directly at Liana. His gaze is honest. We ate her food, and it was different, not as perfect as yours. Some of it was undersalted, some of the flatbread was crooked, but there was something real about it, something homemade in the best sense of the word. We watched our daughter blossom with happiness when we praised her cutlet or soup. We saw her learn, how proud she was of her work. He leans back in his chair. We appreciated it. We truly appreciated it. We saw how our family became closer over these 3 days, calmer, happier at the shared table set by our child. That turned out to be more valuable to us than a flawless menu. Liana listens silently. Her face becomes increasingly still. She understands where this conversation is heading. She's sad, but not angry. She's a grown woman and a professional. She's seen Amina working in the kitchen these days. She's seen that special light in the house. She's felt it too. June continues, and now his voice sounds final, like a verdict, but a verdict delivered without anger. We've come to a decision. We, as a family, want to keep everything as it was these past 3 days. We want Amina to continue cooking for us. We see how important it is to her, and we see how important it is to us. He pauses for a final, crucial moment. That's why we've decided to stop using your services. We no longer need a home cook. We prefer to eat what our daughter cooks, even if it's easier, even if it's not as perfect. For us, this is the right choice right now. He says it directly, without beating around the bush. He doesn't say, we don't need you. He says, we need something else now. He doesn't belittle her work. He simply acknowledges the family's changing needs. Liana is silent for a few seconds. She looks out the window, then back at June. I understand, she says finally. Her voice is quiet but firm. I saw how Amina tried. I saw how you all sat at the table. It showed. I'm not offended. You have to do what's best for your family. Amina is a sweet girl, and she really put her heart into it. That's worth it. She sighs. I'll miss you. You've been wonderful employers. June nods. He appreciates her dignified response. Thank you for your understanding, Liana. We'll miss your food too, he says. Now, on to business. Today is the 15th. You've worked half a month. We'll pay you your full salary for this month, plus a bonus for many years of service. We think that's fair. He stands up and goes to the desk in the corner of the living room. He opens a drawer and takes out an envelope. He had prepared it in advance, even before the conversation, confident in his decision. "Here's the whole amount," he says, handing the envelope to Liana. "You can count it." Liana takes the envelope. She doesn't open it. She trusts him. "Thank you," she says. "No need to count it." She puts the envelope in her bag. Then she gets up. "I'll get my things from the kitchen. I have a couple of knives and a uniform there." "Sure," June says. They leave the living room. Chica is still standing in the hallway. She looks at Liana. Regret and awkwardness are visible on her face. "Liana, I'm sorry," she begins. "It's okay, Chica," Liana interrupts her gently. "It's okay. You're a good mother. You're making the right choice for your girl. I can see that." She goes into the kitchen, gathers her personal belongings into a small bag. She says goodbye again, and leaves. The door closes quietly behind her. The house is silent again. But this is a different silence. Not oppressive like this morning, but somehow new, full of anticipation and uncertainty. Now everything depends on them, on their girl, and on their decision, which can no longer be undone. June stands in the hallway, staring at the closed door. He doesn't feel regret. He feels relief. The weight of his decision has been lifted. Now the path forward is clear. He turns and walks into the kitchen, to where the blue apron hangs on a hook, to where the new, very young chef awaits him, and the conversation he needs to have with her, the most important conversation of the day. June doesn't immediately notice Amina standing in the doorway. She stands quietly, pressed against the frame. She heard the entire conversation. First, she heard voices in the living room, then footsteps, then her mother and Liana's words in the kitchen, and finally, the sound of the front door closing. When the door slammed shut, she stepped forward and paused in the gap between the hallway and the kitchen. She saw her father's back. She saw him looking at the door. She didn't dare speak first. June turns. He sees her. She's standing there in her orange dress and white tights. Her long black curls are tousled. Her face is serious, her eyes wide open. They hold a mixture of hope, question, and something resembling responsibility. "Dad," Amina says quietly. June looks at her. He waits. "I heard everything," she continues. Her voice becomes a little more confident. "Liana left." "Yes," June confirms. "She left." Amina takes another small step into the kitchen. She glances at the hook where her blue apron hangs. Then she looks at her dad. So you need a cook again?" she asks. Not "so I can cook," but "do you need a cook?" She's already speaking to him in the language of adults, the language of services and agreements. June almost smiles, but she restrains herself. He nods, maintaining a serious expression. "Yes, Amina, we need a cook again. A permanent one. Every day. For breakfast, lunch, and dinner." Amina takes a deep breath. Her chest rises. She straightens up to her full, short height. "Then I will be it," she says, clearly and distinctly. "No, may I? No, I'll try. It's a statement. I will cook for our family. I will be your chef." She says it as if it's the most natural thing in the world, as if she's not a 10-year-old girl, but an adult who's come to apply for a job and is confident in her abilities. "Are you sure?" June asks. He wants to give her one last chance to change her mind, to understand the seriousness of this. This isn't for 3 days. This is every day, even when you're tired, even when you don't feel like it, even if something doesn't work out. It's a responsibility, a big one. Amina doesn't blink. She doesn't look away. "I'm sure," she says. "I like it. I don't get tired of it. I love it when you eat what I've made. I love setting the table. I want to do it. I want to be your cook." There's no boasting in her voice, just a firm, calm confidence. She truly loves this. She's proven it in 3 days, and she wants to keep going. June looks at her for a long moment. He doesn't see a child playing at kitchen. He sees a person who has found her calling, and that calling is caring for her family through food. It's simple and clear. June nods slowly. He accepts her offer, but he knows the conversation doesn't end there. He waits. He senses Amina hasn't finished. And he's right. Amina takes another step. Now she's standing right in front of him. She looks him straight in the eyes. This isn't just a statement anymore. This is the beginning of negotiations. "But Dad," she says, a businesslike note creeping into her voice. If I'm a cook, if I do this job every day, like Liana, then it's work, right? Right?" June agrees. "It's work, and work pays a salary," Amina continues logically. June almost smiles again. She's thought it all through. "Usually, yes," he says. "Do you want us to pay you money?" Amina quickly shakes her head. No, not money, she says. I don't need money, I have my allowance. I want something else. She pauses for a second, collecting her thoughts. She's been preparing this speech. I want us all to go to the seaside together, to a real sea, where there's sand and waves and you can swim. I saw a place like that in my mom's magazine. I want us to go there, together. It'll be my salary, for my work. She says it all in one breath, and falls silent. She looks at her dad, trying not to show her excitement. She just laid out her condition. In exchange for her work, she doesn't want a toy, not a dress. She wants a memory. She wants shared family joy. June listens. His face is inscrutable. He doesn't show what he's thinking. He just stands there and looks at his daughter. The calculations start again in his head. Quick, almost instantaneous. A trip to the seaside. These are the expenses. Tickets, accommodations, food. This is the sum X. Liana's annual salary. This is the sum Y. And it is significantly more than X. They just saved the sum Y by foregoing the services of a cook, spending part of this savings on the trip their daughter wants, who will also become their new cook. This is not a waste. This is a wise redistribution of funds. This is an investment in family happiness and in the development of the child. But it's not just about the money. It's about her request. She's not asking for something just for herself. She's asking for a trip for everyone. She wants them to be together. After her words about how good they had been sharing a meal, this request carries especially weight. June is silent for a few seconds. For Amina, these seconds seem like an eternity. She even stops breathing. Then June nods slowly, barely noticeably. Once. Okay, he says in his usual, slightly muffled voice. Agreed. Amina freezes. She can't believe her ears. Really? She breathes out. Really, June confirms. You're becoming our family cook, starting today. Your salary is one trip to the seaside for our whole family, in the summer. We'll look in Mom's journal and choose a place. You do your job well. We'll fulfill our part of the agreement. It's not just a yes. It's the wording of a contract, clear and precise. He speaks to her as an equal partner. He accepts her terms and puts forward his own. You do your job well. Amina doesn't scream with joy. She doesn't jump. She stands still, and a slow, very mature, very satisfied smile spreads across her face. She got what she wanted, through honest negotiations. She proved her worth and traded it for her dream. Thank you, Dad, she says very seriously. I'll try. I'll be a good cook. You won't regret it, June says, and finally allows herself to smile. Big, real. He walks up to her and places his hand on her curly head. I'm proud of you, and I believe in you. Welcome to work, boss. Amina looks at him, and tears well up in her eyes, not from sadness, but from overwhelming happiness and pride. She wraps her arms around her dad's waist and holds him tightly. Just a few minutes ago, she felt a sense of loss, and now she has something so much more. Not just permission to cook, real work, real responsibility, and a real family dream, which has now become a goal. She lets go of her dad and goes to the hook. She takes off his large blue apron. She puts it on. She ties the strings, now more deftly than she did 3 days ago. She goes to the refrigerator and opens it. She looks at the shelves full of food. This is her territory now, her tools, her area of responsibility. So, she says out loud, mostly to herself, so we need to think of something for lunch. What do we have? She begins to think, not as a little girl who's been given permission to play, but as a person who's now been given an important task. She feels the weight of that task, and she likes that weight. June stands and looks at her. He sees her intently studying the contents of the refrigerator, pondering something. He sees her changing right before his eyes. He doesn't regret his decision. He feels like he made the best choice in his life, for his daughter, for his wife, for his family. And now he's standing in front of the refrigerator, wearing an oversized apron, deciding what to make for dinner. The best and most important choice. Liana came home. She placed her bag of knives and the envelope of money on the kitchen table. The apartment was quiet. Usually, after a day of work, she felt pleasantly tired and satisfied. Today, there was only emptiness. She sat down on a chair and stared at the wall. She wasn't angry at her family. June's words stuck in her head. She put her heart and soul into it. That's worth it. Liana was a professional. She'd studied at a good culinary school. She knew all the techniques, all the sauces, all the subtleties. She'd cooked for restaurants and private clients. Her food was always flawless in form. But about soul, they didn't talk about that in the classes. They talked about consistency, temperature, time, things that could be measured and controlled. She remembered Amina, how the girl concentrated on chopping onions, tears streaming down her cheeks, how she corrected mistakes without getting upset, how she so delightedly decorated the table with a simple flower. And the result, she ate the syrniki left over from her first breakfast. She tried a piece of cold syrniki from the fridge on the second day. Yes, it wasn't perfectly round, but there was something real about it. Some simple, home-cooked taste of childhood, the kind that can't be created from a textbook. Liana stood up and walked to the window. Was she offended? No. She was curious. Truly, utterly curious. How could a 10-year-old who, 3 days ago, had been terrified of a frying pan do what had taken her years of training? How could she not just feed her family, but make them choose her over a professional? It wasn't a matter of pride. It was a matter of craft. She wanted to understand. As if some new, secret law of cooking had been discovered that she hadn't known about, Liana stared at her phone, lying next to the envelope, for a long time. Calling a former employer after leaving was against the rules. It could come across as a complaint or a request to come back, but she didn't care about the rules. She needed to know. She picked up her phone. She found Chica's number in her contacts. Her finger hovered over the screen. She hesitated. Then she finally pressed call. The ringing was long. Liana was about to hang up when she heard a voice. "Hello?" said June. His voice was neutral, just like that morning. "June, good evening. It's Liana. Sorry to bother you," she began quickly, feeling awkward. "Liana, is everything okay?" asked June. A slight wariness appeared in his voice. Yes, everything is fine. She hesitated. "I have a strange request for you. Can I speak to Amina? Just for a little while. I really need it." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Liana heard June walk away from the phone and say something, then footsteps, and a quiet voice asking, "Who?" Then there was a light breathing on the line. "Hello?" said a thin, childish voice. "Amina, hi. This is Liana." "Hello," said Amina. Her voice was cautious, but without fear. I'm calling because I have a question for you. Just one. May I?" Liana tried to speak as softly as possible. "Yes, you can," answered Amina. Liana closed her eyes. She had been formulating the question in her head all evening, but now the words seemed wrong. "Amina, do you remember the syrniki you made on the first day?" she began. "I remember. I tried them. They were very good. Really. And lunch and dinner. I saw how you worked. You did everything so confidently, as if you hadn't learned it for 3 days, but had always known it." She paused, gathering her courage. "I learned to cook for a long time. In special courses, they showed me how to do everything correctly, and I always tried to do everything according to the rules, to make it perfect. But what you did, that was different. Your parents chose your food, and I want to understand. How? What is your secret? What do you know that I don't? Please, tell me." She exhaled. She said it. The grown-up, experienced chef asked the girl to reveal the secret. She felt a little ashamed, but her curiosity was stronger. Amina was silent for a few seconds. She was probably thinking, then she spoke. Her voice was calm, simple, as if she were explaining why the grass is green. "There is no secret," she said. Liana felt disappointment like a blow, so the girl simply didn't want to share. That was understandable. But Aminaz continued, "I just feel what needs to be done. I look at the cottage cheese and realize it needs a little more flour. I see the frying pan and realize it's not hot yet. I taste the soup and realize there's not enough salt. I don't remember where I learned this. Maybe when I watched you cook, maybe when Mom made something before. But now I just feel it." She paused as if testing her feelings. "For example, with the syrniki, the first one stuck. I felt sad, but then I thought, they stuck because the pan was cold and there wasn't enough oil. I didn't learn this from a book. I felt it. And I tried to do it differently, and it worked." Her voice became a little livelier. "And when I set the table, I like to choose things that look beautiful. I look at the plates and think, there needs to be a red berry here, to make it more cheerful. And so I put it in. And it seems to me that it even makes the food taste better, because everyone is happy." She fell silent again, and then added even more quietly, as if sharing her biggest secret. "I'm not trying to do it perfectly. I'm trying to make it tasty and good for you, for Mom, Dad, to make you smile. I think when I think like that, everything works out for me. That's the whole secret." Liana stood with the phone to her ear, speechless. Everything she knew about cooking flashed through her mind. Techniques, recipes, state standards, temperature control, serving, everything that could be studied, everything that could be learned. And then the girl told her that the secret was to feel and try to make things good. It sounded so simple that it seemed silly, but for some reason, those simple words stuck in her memory more vividly than any diploma. I'm not trying to make it perfect. I'm trying to make it tasty and good for you. Liana suddenly realized what she'd been doing wrong all these years. She'd been trying to make it perfect. For the restaurant critic, for the food guide, for her resume. She'd followed the rules so her work would be appreciated by professionals. She'd almost forgotten that she was cooking for people. That what mattered wasn't the perfect form, but the joy and warmth that food brought to the home. Amina didn't cook by the book. She cooked from the heart, for the two most important people in her world. And in this simplicity, this sincerity, lay that magical ingredient that can't be bought in any class or found in any cookbook. Liana, can you hear me? Amina asked through the phone. Yes, I can hear you. Liana squeezed out with difficulty. Her voice trembled. Thank you. Thank you very much, Amina. You helped me a lot. Really? The girl was surprised. Really, you are a good cook, a very good one. Good luck to you. Thank you. And you too. They said goodbye. Liana put the phone on the table. She sat in silence for a long time. A strange feeling filled her. Not the bitterness of being fired, but a kind of enlightenment, as if she'd been staring at a complex puzzle for a long time, and the girl had shown her that the answer had been right there all along. She stood up and walked to her kitchen. Not her work kitchen, but her home kitchen. She opened the refrigerator. She took out some simple ingredients: eggs, milk, some greens. She didn't bother trying to remember the recipe for the perfect omelet. She simply cracked the eggs into a bowl, looked at them, added a pinch of salt, without weighing them. She just felt it would be right. She whisked them, put the pan on the heat. She didn't check the temperature with a thermometer. She waited until the butter began to foam gently, and then poured in the eggs. She stood at the stove, watching the egg mixture thicken around the edges. She wasn't thinking about technology. She was thinking about making dinner for herself. A simple dinner. And maybe for the first time in a long time, she would cook it not for the sake of being judged, but simply because she wanted to, so that it would be delicious and good for her. And on the other side of town, Amina put her dad's phone back. She turned around. In the kitchen, her dad was helping her wash the pots after her first official dinner. Mom was wiping down the table. Chica asked, looking up at her. Amina shrugged. She asked for the secret of how I cook. And what did you answer? June asked curiously. I said there's no secret. Amina smiled. I'm just doing it to make you feel good. She walked to the window and looked at the darkening sky. Somewhere out there was the sea, where they would definitely go now. And here was her kitchen, her family, and the work she loved. Everything was simple, and everything was right. The next morning, Amina woke up before everyone else. Before the alarm would have rung, the room was filled with the gray light of pre-dawn. She lay there and listened to the silence. Before, this silence meant Liana's footsteps would soon be heard in the kitchen. Now, this silence was different. It was hers. It was the silence before she began her work. Amina stood up quietly. She put on her orange dress and white tights. She tiptoed out of the room. The hallway was cool. She went into the kitchen and turned on the light. Bright light flooded the empty space. She walked over to the hook and took off her blue apron. She put it on. She tied the strings at the back, almost without looking, with a familiar movement. The apron was still too big, but now it felt less like a playsuit and more like a work uniform, like a doctor's smock or a scientist's coat. She walked over to the refrigerator. She opened it. Cold air hit her face. She looked at the shelves lined with groceries. Yesterday, she'd looked at them with excitement and awe. Today, she looked at them with a sense of responsibility. She had to come up with breakfast. Not just what to make, but think it through. She was a cook. She had clients. Mom and Dad. Amina took out the eggs and milk. She looked at the jar of oatmeal, then at the bag of flour. She could make pancakes, or porridge, or an omelet. The choice was hers. She remembered yesterday's breakfast, Liana's perfect omelet, and the silence at the table. She didn't want to repeat that omelet. She wanted to make something of her own, something that would make her parents wake up with a smile. She decided to make pancakes, but not just any pancakes, with apples. Dad loves apples. She took out 2 red apples, washed them. She took a small grater and began grating the apples on a coarse grater. The juice splattered, the grater squeaked. She worked slowly, carefully, trying not to scratch her fingers. Then she prepared the dough: flour, eggs, milk, a pinch of salt and sugar. She added grated apples and mixed them. The dough turned out with lumps of apple pulp. It smelled fresh. While she was cooking, a typical morning was beginning in the house. Footsteps were heard. As always, June was the first to enter the kitchen. He was wearing his black robe, his hair tousled from sleep. "Oh, our chef is already here," he said, smiling. His voice was hoarse from sleep, but there was warmth in it. "Good morning, Dad," Amina said, not looking up from the frying pan where she was spooning batter. "Breakfast will be ready soon. Please sit down." The "please sit down" sounded both formal and sweet. June nodded and sat down at the table. He looked at his daughter. She stood by the stove, her profile serious and focused. There was a new, subtle fluidity to her movements. She wasn't fidgeting. She was doing her job. While the pancakes were frying, Amina busied herself with the table. She chose a yellow tablecloth, the color of the sun. She set out the plates, not white with a border, but simple blue ones with white polka dots. As she set down the knife and fork, she remembered Liana's words about the secret. "I'm just trying to make you feel good," and she arranged the utensils so that Mom and Dad could easily reach them. She placed small bowls of honey and sour cream on the table. She took a couple of sprigs of grapes from the refrigerator, washed them, and placed them in the center of the table in a small saucer. Just because. To make it look pretty. At that moment, Chica came into the kitchen. She was wearing her blue robe. She looked at the set table, at Amina at the stove, looking at Juna, who was watching it all with a smile. A look of deep, calm happiness appeared on her face. "Good morning," she said quietly. "Good morning, Mom. Breakfast is ready," Amina responded. She removed the last pancake from the frying pan onto a shared plate and carried it to the table. The plate was steaming. The pancakes were golden brown, uneven, with bits of apple sticking out here and there. Amina sat down. Everyone was gathered. June was the first to take a pancake. He drizzled it with honey. He took a bite. "Mmm," he said with his mouth full. "Apple ones. My favorite. Thanks, Chef." Chica tried one with sour cream. "Very tender, Amina. And you can taste the apples. Great." And the conversation began. Not the oppressive one from yesterday morning, but a normal family one. "What's on your agenda today, June?" Chica asked. "Meeting at 10. Then paperwork. Nothing interesting," he replied. "And you?" "I want to finish the report. And then, maybe, I'll go to the store." "Amina, do you need anything? Maybe some special products for your kitchen?" Amina thought for a moment. She really was the chef now. She could have her own requests. "Can I have different spices?" she asked cautiously. "Not the same ones as always. Some others, so I can try them." "Of course," Chica smiled. "We'll make a list." They ate, talked, and shared plans. There was no silence. There was a cozy, soft hum of voices. Amina sat and felt that everything was going well. Her pancakes were eaten to the last crumb. The honey and sour cream were gone. The grapes, too, had disappeared. After breakfast, her parents left to get ready for work. Amina was left alone in the kitchen with dirty dishes. Before, she probably would have sighed. Now, she simply turned on the water and started washing. It was part of the job. Her job. She washed the dishes and thought. She thought about how everything had changed in just a few days. She was no longer just a girl who went to school and did her homework. She had an important job now. People relied on her. They expected breakfast, lunch, and dinner from her. It was both terrifying and exhilarating. She remembered her conversation with Liana. "I just feel it." Amina looked at her hands, lathered in soap. She really did feel it. She felt when the dough was ready. She felt when the soup was ready to be salted. It was a strange knowledge that lived not in her head, but somewhere in her fingertips, her nose, her tongue. She couldn't explain it to anyone, but she could show it. She finished washing the dishes. She dried her hands. She went to the bookshelf and pulled down a large cookbook. Now she looked at it differently. It wasn't a collection of instructions to be blindly followed. It was a book of ideas. There were pictures you could use as a basis, and then make it your own. Add your own berry, your own mint leaf, your own slice of apple. She opened the book to the lunch section. She needed to think of a meal. Something filling for Dad, something light for Mom. She flipped through the pages, her own combinations already forming in her head. The kitchen door opened slightly. Chica walked in, already dressed to go out. "I'm leaving, honey," she said. "Can you handle it? Are you sure you don't want me to buy and cook something for lunch? Maybe some convenience food?" "No, Mom," Amina said firmly, not looking up from her book. "I can handle it. I'll think of everything. I'm the boss." Chica smiled and kissed her on the top of her head. Okay, boss. The key is under the mat if anything happens. Call if you need help. If I need it, I'll call, Amina promised. Chica left. Then June left, waving at her from the hallway. The door closed. Complete silence reigned in the house. But this silence was no longer empty. It was filled with responsibility and possibility. Amina took a piece of paper and a pencil. She began to write a list. Not just a grocery list, but a plan. Lunch: soup, chicken, noodles, and carrots. Make the broth thicker. Second, fish cutlets. I'll find some minced meat in the freezer with mashed potatoes. Salad: cucumbers and tomatoes with herbs. She thought for a moment and added, decorate the table with a green napkin. Put a flower in a vase. The plan was ready. Now it was time to check the supplies. Amina opened the freezer. There was minced fish. Excellent. She took it out to defrost. Then she took out the chicken for the broth. She took out the vegetables. She worked methodically, without fuss. She already knew that she needed to put the broth on first because it took a long time to cook. While it was cooking, she could prepare everything else. She turned on the stove and put the pot on, poured in water, added the chicken. She set the timer on her phone so she wouldn't forget to skim off the foam. Then she sat down at the kitchen table with potatoes and vegetables for the salad. She peeled the potatoes, and dinner plans were already forming in her head. And even further away, the sea. She imagined the sand, the waves. She imagined them all sitting together in a cafe by the water, trying new dishes. Maybe she'd even ask the chef there for a recipe, or come up with her own, inspired by the sea. She smiled. She had everything now: a job she loved, proud parents, and a goal, the best goal of all, a trip with the whole family. And she knew for sure that she would do everything in her power to make it happen. She would be the best cook in the world, not because someone demanded it of her, but because she wanted it herself. The sound of boiling water in a saucepan brought her back to reality. She set the potatoes aside, walked over to the stove, and grabbed a slotted spoon. A new workday was beginning, her first full day at her new, most important job of her life, and she was ready. She skimmed the foam from the broth, deftly and carefully, as she had done many times before. Then she added a whole peeled onion and large chunks of carrot to the pot. Let them simmer, filling the house with a familiar, soothing aroma. Now it was the potatoes' turn. She cut the peeled potatoes into large chunks and set them to boil in a separate saucepan for mashing. While everything was cooking, Amina worked on the minced fish. She took it out of the bowl. It was already sufficiently thawed. She added finely chopped onion, an egg, a little semolina for cohesion, and salt. Her small hands vigorously kneaded the mixture until it became smooth and pliable. The kitchen was in perfect order. A broth simmered gently on one burner. Potatoes were boiling on another. On the table, cooked cutlets, dusted with breadcrumbs, lay waiting their turn. Amina washed cucumbers and tomatoes for the salad. She felt the rhythm. Unhurried, confident. She kept up with everything. She didn't run, didn't fuss. She simply moved from one task to the next, checking, stirring, tasting for salt. When the broth was ready, she removed the chicken, separated the meat from the bones, and returned it to the pot. She added a handful of thin vermicelli. The potatoes were cooked. She drained the water, added warm milk and a knob of butter, and began mashing them into a smooth puree. Then she heated the frying pan and placed the fish cakes in it. They sizzled, promising to become crispy and golden. Half an hour before her parents arrived, Amina began setting the table. A green tablecloth, matching napkins, a vase with a sprig of chrysanthemum from the balcony. Everything had been thought out. With the last cutlet on the plate and soup in the tureen, Amina stepped back and surveyed her dining table. Everything was ready, perfect, homemade, her way. She heard the key in the lock. The first steps were June's. He paused in the kitchen doorway, sniffing the air. "Dinner is served, Papa," Amina said simply, her voice calm and confident, like the voice of someone in the right place.